All right. Hey there, folks. Welcome back. I hope everyone had a great summer and is ready to kick things off for the fall. At this point, you know the drill, but even though conventions, signings, and other live events are getting back on track, I figured I'd bring Book Tour to you. So, welcome to Russ's Rockin' Rollercoaster, intriguing interviews with creative minds. And making tonight's show extra special is that it's our fall 2023 season premiere. And since this is the roller coaster, after all, what better way to kickstart the wild ride we'll be taking together this season than by starting off with some good old TARDIS time regeneration and diving into the revival of Doctor Who. From the shores of Gallifrey to the Thames River, Doctor Who stories range between sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and comedy, with tons to discuss, and we're going to get to as much of it as we can. On our panel tonight is my pal and an absolute sweetheart, Christopher D. Abbott, a writer of crime, fantasy, sci-fi, and horror, in addition to various pieces of short fiction and novels. Chris is best known for his absolutely fantastic ongoing run of Sherlock Holmes novellas published in the Watson Chronicles. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Good to see you again, Russ. Thank you.
All right, back at you, buddy. All right, also on our panel is author, artist, and digital marketing consultant Jennifer Rosenberg. Jen has published work in several anthologies, tabletop role-playing game manuals, and journals, and also writes and illustrates children's books. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
All right, good to see you. And rounding out our panel is author John Peel. John has written the novelizations of multiple Doctor Who stories. The first original Doctor Who novel, Time Worm Genesis, an original Sixth Doctor audio adventure for BBC Audio, and a number of other novels and spin-off series. John has also written novels based on shows such as Star Trek, The Avengers, and The Outer Limits. Welcome, John.
Hi, nice to be here and see you all.
All right, good to see you. All right, just a heads up to the folks at home. Feel free to send questions you have for me or the panel in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, so just to set the stage tonight, we're going to be focused on Doctor Who since the revival, with the 9th Doctor all the way through the 13th. So before we dive into kind of the nitty-gritty of the individual doctors, companions, and more, I want to ask the panel, what is it about Doctor Who that keeps us coming back for more, even after all these years and various iterations? So, John, what do you think? What's the ongoing appeal of Doctor Who?
Well, it's the basic format is just so flexible, and you can do so much with it. You don't have to stay in one particular area, one particular genre. Even it goes from fantasy to science fiction to historical fiction, anything you really can imagine. So that it's like the weather. If you don't like it, hang around a bit, it'll change. That's part of the. I think that's why it succeeds.
Right. All right. Fair enough. All right, Jen. What about you? So other than what John said, what's kind of the appeal? What keeps you coming back?
I mean, because you never know what's going to happen, and there, like John said, there are so many possibilities, but also because you keep getting somebody new, it's like you bring in a fresh set of people every time.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, I think the show just regenerates itself each time it changes with the actor. So, I mean, it's cliche, but I think that's exactly what happens. And what keeps it fresh is new people, as Jen and John both said, new people coming in and just giving it that new energy.
All right, fair enough. So the writing aside for a moment, each Doctor brings their own style and mojo to the table. And with each regeneration, the new Doctor is never an exact copy of the last one. Now, you kind of mentioned that, I think you semi-answered this, but I'm going to poke around a little bit. So do you think that a reset every couple of years is exciting, with a new way to interpret the Doctor's adventures and their perspectives on the universe? Or does something get lost in translation from Doctor to Doctor? So Jen, what do you think?
I really like the individual personalities of each Doctor. I mean, obviously you like some more than others, but I like that, somebody new comes along and you get used to someone different and their different, idiosyncrasies and personalities and quirks. And I think that it is valuable.
So Chris, what about you? Is it sort of, you just say, hey, you know what, we've done, 20, 30, 35 episodes. I think that's a good run. It's time to reset? Or do you think, oh, you know what, I'm really digging this. I'm really digging this run. I really wish they'd keep it going. I wish they didn't kind of shake things up. Or is it both?
For me, I think I like the idea that a new showrunner will come every few years and give it a new direction. When Russell took it over, created it, if you like, brought it back, he had a goal. And then when Stephen Moffat came along, he had his own goal. And so I think I like that transitional change. I think that's important. But it is, in a sense, the new showrunner is the reset almost. Yes, we still get the rich history, but for this new Doctor with the new companions, it's kind of like, okay, forget everything that happened before, because this is all new from here on. And I think that's perhaps something that does happen, and I kind of like that.
So John, what about you? I mean, do you think that, obviously the Doctors are different, the companions are different, the writers bring their own, the showrunners bring their own sensibility to it, and you'll probably like some more than others. Do you like that that they kind of come in and say, well, you had your go, but I have my own interpretation, and you'll like it better or worse? Or do you think that, you just because it's different doesn't fundamentally make it better, it doesn't fundamentally make it worse, but you might feel that, oh, I don't like this one as much as another? Do you just say, you know what, no matter how much I may have enjoyed a particular run, it's better just to kind of reset? Or is there risk in sort of, maybe undercutting what came before it?
Well, I'm definitely in favor of them changing the way the show is going every few years, because as we've all been saying, really, that's what keeps it fresh. That's what keeps it alive. Otherwise, you'll get into a situation where you'll just keep redoing the same old. This is a fresh approach, and I think part of the fun of it is that it is fresh. You get a new actor in, and who the heck is this person? What have they done? What will they do? It gives that kind of fresh, kind of an injection of suspense. We don't know where the show is going to go. I mean, we don't know where Shooty's going to go with the show, right, because we haven't seen any of it yet. So it's something we can either look forward to or dread, but it will be a change.
Right. So fair enough. I mean, so with the first season, you get Chris Eccleston, and obviously that was kind of the first kind of go around with the first reset. And, I know there was some behind the scenes machinations for the reasons that he left. But I remember when he had his run, I thought, God, I love this guy as the Doctor. And they brought in, I remember, I think I may have said it, maybe even to Chris offline or someone. I'm like, oh, David Tennant came in, and just at the beginning, David Tennant is just not Chris Eccleston. He's just, and I was like, ugh. But then once he got into it, David Tennant was just born to play from my eyes, is born to play the role. And then he comes along, and then they switch, and oh God, all right. And they bring Matt Smith in. God, from the get-go, I thought, this guy is unbelievable. I love this guy, right? And then he had his run, and then Capaldi came in, and he kind of sort of, Tennant, and so Eccleston had that, that kind of more, let's say, for lack of a better term, he was kind of much more, I don't know if maybe macho is the wrong way to say it, but he was kind of very, he was physical, and he kind of reminded me of Daniel Craig in a way, kind of has that kind of like bulldog kind of roughness to him, but he also had that other side, whereas Tennant was a little more cerebral but intense. Matt Smith had a little bit more of a softer sensibility to it, but it was wonderful. Capaldi comes in, and he was sort of a mix of like, he was sort of almost like more like Eccleston, but a little grumpier, and he kind of found his own rhythm. And then we got another one, and it's tough when how do you feel about when you lock onto a character, you love that character, and then they're just gone? I mean, in this world, they could never really be, they could always theoretically come back, and sometimes they do. Do you find yourself, is it better to sort of miss the Doctors that you loved, rather than saying, oh, it should be the way it used to be? Or is there a certain sort of does it add almost a certain sort of special quality because their runs are limited?
I think it does. I think, having been a fan of the show prior to this 2005 revival from very early age, one of the things that has always happened in the show is that when the new Doctor comes along, everybody says, "Oh no, I can't bear it, my Doctor," and then episode in, they don't remember that guy anymore. But we always, as fans, I think from the early age, always wanted a multi-Doctor story. We always wanted the Doctors to get back together.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's always that hope that at some point we'll get, you know, Capaldi and David Tennant, they'll all get together and do a show, you know.
Well, we did get a couple of episodes, right? When there was a few where there was kind of multi-Doctor episodes, which were kind of cool. I agree. All right, so let's talk about So let's talk about the companions. You know, for the first several Doctors, we got individual companions, and then in the later runs, we got some teams. So, what did you think about the one-on-ones versus the team, the group companion dynamic? Jen, what was your thought? Did you like one version better than another? Does it matter? Like what do you think?
I mean, I actually really like the group dynamic, and I really did not like the oh my gosh, I'm crushing on the Doctor dynamic. But like I really enjoyed with the most recent Doctor, the dynamic of having three of them, and they're all, you know, different. You know, we get different age, and I thought that was a fabulous dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, having been born in the mid-70s and growing up with Doctor Who in the 80s, I was very much used to a huge team, because the last episode of Tom Baker, I remember, had the TARDIS team, which went on, you know, there were three of them, and that was kind of crazy. And then later on, of course, when a new showrunner comes and takes their new take on it, and Jodie Whittaker took over as the Doctor, and she had three of the best companions, I think. I mean, like, they were so dynamic, as Jen said. And of course, you know, some of us knew some of these people beforehand as well. So, but yeah, I think that helps. I do.
John, any thoughts? Do you have a preference on the, you know, the individual companions versus the teams? Or is it just a matter of, you know, either there's magic on the screen or there's not?
Well, yes, actually, I think that's exactly right. There's either magic or there isn't. I mean, I came in with the first Doctor almost from the very beginning. So I was used to three companions and the Doctor, which lasted for a couple of years before it, you know, altered it all. So, I mean, I was used with that. But then what happens is you get a good companion, just a single good companion who interacts with the Doctor brilliantly. That works too. So, I mean, I was really happy when we had the fam on the show with Jodie. I mean, I like that. I really enjoyed having the group, but I don't mind going back to just one companion, because again, it's like everything else. It's part of the show. It's part of the appeal of the show.
So yeah, I mean,
you've got good relationships. Yeah.
So fair enough. So with Jen, you mentioned something. So we saw multiple iterations of Doctor companion relationship where there was, you know, the companion is crushing on the Doctor. It was, you know, obviously there was a real vibe, even really from, you know, with the Chris Eccleston and, you know, from the first one with Rose, and then there was a real kind of an even on to David Tennant, there was sort of like a real sort of love affair kind of going on there. And then, you know, Martha Jones had a very overt, you know, love with the Doctor. And then Donna Noble comes in. And, you know, it was a very different vibe. And I don't know, I'm curious what you guys felt about it. I sort of really appreciated that right off the bat, they were both like, no, stop. No. We could be pals, we're doing this, but we ain't doing that. You know, did you appreciate that? Not appreciate it? You know, what's your, so Jen, so what did you think?
Oh no, I really appreciated it. I appreciated the fact that Donna had the wherewithal to talk back to the Doctor, because that was so refreshing after, you know, several seasons of crushes. So
Yeah, I mean,
I completely agree. I mean, as I say, I was raised on the early Doctor Who, so there was never any indication at all, in my opinion, of any kind of relationship between the Doctor and his companions. He was a teacher stroke, you know, friend, and that was it. And then the new series did come along, and I think the series itself reinvents, as we talked about earlier. And I think when we get to the 50th anniversary, where they bring John Hurt in to play a sort of an older, more crotchety Doctor, he makes a comment about the kissing, and I like the way Matt Smith's Doctor Who does start to happen. And then they then completely put the kibosh on it entirely, and they bring Capaldi in and make him entirely unlikable, to a companion that has been with a version of the Doctor that she had actually fallen in love with. And so that was very interesting dynamic.
and then, but in the last season, though, then we kind of got a little bit, they went back to the kind of, at the end, especially, we had a little bit of the crush going on there at the end. And even the Doctor said, look, if it was going to be with anyone, it would be with you. I would want to be with you, but I can't, you know. I don't know. Do you think if you think about the kind of adventures that they go on, I mean, physically, you know, when you travel inside the TARDIS, I mean, you're just sharing a space physically, right? And then you're going on these adventures where your life is at risk many times. You're going to these crazy places and you're going through these shared experiences. I mean, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me that two people over time, you know, it's not unreasonable to think that those kinds of emotions could start to bubble up. Right. It doesn't mean that they ought to from a storytelling perspective, but it doesn't seem unreasonable that it might happen. But I guess it sort of depends on how much you know, I think what I don't like about it is that it lends itself to a little bit of a fawning kind of a relationship where it's drastically uneven. Right. You know, that's what I really loved about Donna when she came in and she kind of put her foot down and essentially said in one way or another, I know you're the Doctor, but, you know, either we're in this together as, you know, essentially we're partners or we're not. Right. I'm not following you around like some little schoolgirl, you know, and just saying, yes, Doctor, whatever you say, Doctor, like that ain't happening. And I really kind of appreciated that kind of that marking in the sand. And then when we got, oh, Jesus, come on, Russ, come on, wake up. The Ponds, you know, I mean, she was, you know, she met the Doctor when she was a child. So he wouldn't, because that's not who he was. But if had that happened, it would have been icky, right? I mean, he met her when she was 8 years old. Like, even though she grew up to be a beautiful woman, you just can't do that. And they didn't, but they shouldn't. Anyway.
I wonder, I mean, I think John might have a better insight into this Doctor's character, personality, and so on, having written quite a few of the books. But I think that the Doctor himself, or herself, or themselves,
right?
Perhaps we should refer to them as they, them, rather than he, she, him. But anyway, I believe the Doctor goes through periods of his life being super long, where he or she does things just in order to shake it up a little bit. And that's my opinion. And I think when Capaldi's Doctor came along, it was a saying, yes, enough now. You've done this. Because even Madame Vastra said, who do you think that was for? That he's not young. He's thousands of years old.
That's right.
That was for you. That's for you. Yeah, that's and I think that the Doctor gets through periods of time where he, she, they decides, I need to shake this up because I'm lonely or I'm bored, but right. I'd love to hear John's perspective on that.
Well, from my point of view, at least, I think the Doctor would not get involved with humans because they are so ephemeral for him, really. I mean, you know, and he changes. Everything about him changes. So, I mean, you can't have a relationship going where suddenly the person you're, you know, in love with has become entirely a different person.
Right.
Because there's no relationship there. It kills the relationship. So I think the Doctor should really be very, very leery of having any kind of relationship with someone like a human. So, you know, I was never really very fond of them crushing on the Doctor. Right. And I was so glad when Donna came in and said, no, not doing it ever.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, thank goodness they've got the voice of reason in Donna.
Right. And I really loved kind of how they, you know, when they introduced her, she's sort of, you know, on the surface, she's like, you're like, oh God, who is this dingbat, this loudmouth dingbat? I don't want to be with her. But then you realize, wow, she's someone who you want on your side. She's loyal and she feels things very deeply and she's passionate and she's willing to stand up to him and to what's right. And, you know, really kind of allowed herself to be, you know, to me, her the way she carried herself throughout her run was such a wonderful gift based on how I just loved how they set it up for her to seem like the most implausible of the kind of people that you would think why would I ever want to spend time with this person, only to realize that you really do. And I loved how they did that. I thought that was great. All right, so it would be impossible to discuss Doctor Who without talking about their various adversaries. The Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master, and more. So first, just a quick question. The Cybermen, are they the original Borg?
Oh, yes, I suppose so. I mean, yes, I suppose so. I don't know if in the original series when Kip Pedler and the others came up with the idea of the Cybermen, I don't know if they actually envisaged them being in a hive mind, but they certainly appeared in that way in the second Doctor serials because they were always in like the tomb of the Cybermen. They were always in a hive of some kind. So it's very possible.
All right. So here's something it bugs me a little bit. I mean, it's not crushing me or anything, but the Doctor seems to wipe out the Daleks and the Cybermen every year or so, and then they wind up clawing their way back. So what do you think about that? Do you like that the classic enemies never seem to kind of completely go away? Or is it maybe time to retire some of those classic enemies and start fresh with some new ones? John, what do you think?
Well, I remember talking to Terry Nation when I was writing War of the Daleks, and I said, look, Terry, I've had enough of Davros for the time being. Can we kill him off? And he said, you can do whatever you like, John, just don't do it very completely permanently. He said, I learned from the very beginning that it's a mistake to kill off a good villain. And he's right in that way, I think. But I think giving them a rest from time to time is not a bad idea. And I think creating new villains is always wonderful, but extremely difficult. In the new series, they've come up with a few goodies. I mean, obviously the Weeping Angels.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to get to that in a second. We're going to get to that.
Yeah,
yes.
But I mean, it's not very easy creating a real villain.
Well, let me ask you. So let me play devil's advocate, though. Just because it's difficult, does that mean that doesn't that run the risk of kind of getting lazy and saying, well, you know what, let's just bring back I mean, how many Dalek episodes were there? A lot. How many Cybermen episodes were there? A lot. Like at a certain point, it's sort of like if you go back to, you know, old like American classic TV, how many times can you fight the Russians? I mean, either just win or lose or move on. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that I don't think the Daleks are great because they're pretty menacing, and the Cybermen too. But I don't know. Jen, what do you think? Have they been overused? Do they just need a quiet time, or is it time to just say, you know what, we've milked it for everything we could do? You know.
No, I mean, I think if you're in a universe that has time travel, then
yeah,
creatures or beings that get eradicated are gonna find their way back in. But we have had newer ones that are really cool as well, mixed into, yes, an awful lot of Daleks, but you know, and Cybermen, but it makes sense, and it brings back something, so there's a nostalgia element to it as well.
All right, so go ahead, Chris. Please go.
I was just going to say, I think I agree with what Jen was saying there. I think that nostalgia part is very important. But I also think that the showrunners, the people who are running the show, they understand that the Daleks had lost their sort of scariness very, very early on in the 1960s, in fact. So what were they going to be able to do with them? Well, they just make them super nostalgic. And then we have episodes where we have Daleks from those periods in the same one. But one thing that I thought, and I don't know about anyone else, but I thought the original story, the Russell T Davies story, Dalek, that they did with Chris Eccleston, where they turned that Dalek into that one Dalek and they showed exactly its capabilities, I made the Dalek scary again.
Yeah, I agree. You know, especially when you kind of, you know, when you finally crack open that Dalek and you see what's inside that, and you're like, good Lord, this is.
Also in the new series, they brought back, you know, the Sea Devils and the Silurians after a rest of decades, and they had fresh stories to tell.
Right.
So I think that's a good way to do it too. Every now and again, okay, let's bring the Zygons back. Yeah, why not? We haven't had them since the 70s, you know, that kind of thing. That really works.
All right. So John, as you were saying, so for me, Blink as a single episode and the Weeping Angels as a villain, in my mind, is just some of the most inventive in the series, and maybe in any series that I've ever seen. Just really kind of a fascinating, I mean, I don't know how we came up with that. Talk to me about the Weeping Angels and the way they work, and how their presence is kind of so, you know, it's you to me anyway, it's just incredibly, it's just unique in a way that kind of, it really kind of shook me up at first. And, you know, like, how do you deal with something where you can't, I mean, try not blinking for more than like 10 seconds. It ain't that easy. And when like your life is on the line, they're saying, don't blink, don't blink. Well, you could say it all you want, but try not blinking. It's not that easy. What do you think, John? You're muted.
It's hard to say, really. I'm not a huge fan of the Weeping Angels, even though that I know that they're very popular. Because frankly, I have a hard time understanding them. And I like a villain that I can comprehend, because especially if I'm writing stories about them, obviously it helps to know their motivations and what have you. And I've never quite figured out what the Weeping Angels actually want.
I always thought the fact that they're so difficult to understand is what made them so scary.
It could well be. And the idea of something that moves when you're not looking at it, you know, that is scary. But the problem was that after they created the Weeping Angels, they went through a whole bunch of don't breathe, don't do this, don't cry, don't whatevers. And I thought they were milking the concept far too much. They should have just stopped with the Weeping Angels, and not done all the other bits and pieces like it.
Chris,
But yeah,
what do you think?
I don't entirely agree with John, but I do understand his position. I actually recognize what he's saying. But for me, I thought the Weeping Angels, not being able to understand them because I'm not writing for them is easy. So that's why I recognize John's position there. But I thought that the idea of these, whatever the science is, the quantum locked life forms that can't move when you're looking at them, observing them. I did like that concept. I like the idea that the story was being told from the point of view of a videotape that was made. I mean, the whole story itself was just genius. And the fact that you get that dialogue in the end where she's repeating this, giving him answers, and it almost appears as if he's talking to her through the screen and the guy sitting there next to him just writing it all down, and you don't even realize that. So I'm sorry if I spoiled it for anyone, sorry. But it's a great story and episode. But I did like the concept that the Weeping Angels would send you back in time and feed off that energy, and create these paradoxes, and then those paradoxes will give them the energy they needed to live.
So Jen, what about you? I mean, what do you think about a being that, you know, if you take your eyes off it literally for a nanosecond, they encroach on you and get scarier and more terrifying?
Well, I mean, it clearly resonated with a lot of people because even if you're out and about and there's a statue, somebody's always going to say something about a weeping angel. So it really sort of permeated the popular culture. I thought they were quite freaky.
I,
Maybe not as, I mean, I thought the silence was also quite freaky, but
yes. So that, which is, I also love too, because they don't talk. There's no, all they do is move in these bursts of moment that you can't even see, and they don't talk to you. They taunt you without taunting you. They don't use any words, and it's just that just because you just don't know what they want and how it works. For me anyway, I thought it was brilliant, and I think they're just, to me, endlessly fascinating because they're so unlike most villains that you get that sort of pontificate about, oh, I'm going to take over the world, I'm going to suck your soul out, I'm going to whatever. Not them.
Well,
Anyway,
because most of the time they don't even talk to you either.
right.
So you're really having to discover their motivation, their
Motivations.
modus
Right.
operandi, whatever. But I think there was one episode where I think one of them had got somebody's mic and was able to talk to him. But yes, generally speaking, these are villains that just the only purpose you understand is what the Doctor tells you they are capable of doing.
Right. That's
We
exactly
have
right.
no other way of knowing this. But then they brought out that little cherubs that, and I think that was to John's point earlier, was that was the stuff that was kind of like, okay, this is the added horror-esque stuff that we didn't really need.
Okay. All right.
But yeah.
Okay. So every good intergalactic adventurer needs some gadgets. So let's talk a minute about the TARDIS itself. It's an interdimensional time machine, but it's also an organic being. So talk to me about the relationship between the Doctor and the TARDIS. So Chris, what do you think?
Well, I think it's been fairly evident from day one that the TARDIS is more than a machine. Even the Doctor says
Right.
that. The first Doctor, he says that himself. It's
Yep.
and then the fifth Doctor reminds Tegan that it's more than a machine. He doesn't fly it. He kind of just has a conversation and hopes that the TARDIS will take him. I think that the idea that these people, this race of people that are so intellectually beyond us, that have created machines with a telepathic system that links with the people who come into it and becomes part of them. I think that is a genius technological advancement and creative part that has been used for 50-60 years. Yeah, I think that's that connectivity, that symbiosis between the Doctor. And I think at one point the Tom Baker's Doctor is in the Pyramids of Mars says that the TARDIS was isomorphic, that the controls would only work for the Doctor. I'm not sure that that's true. I think that he may have just been saying that, because why would Sutekh know any different? But there's also that, the TARDIS is telepathic, so maybe the TARDIS picks that up from him and they are now isomorphic.
John, what do you think? Do you like the fact that the TARDIS has this, somewhat symbiotic relationship or telepathic relationship with the Doctor and the companions, or I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's wonderful. I like the concept that the TARDIS doesn't take him where he wants to go; it takes him where he needs to go.
Yes.
Which suggests that the TARDIS has its own agenda.
Yes, there we go. That's what I was waiting for.
And that it's an agenda it doesn't share with the Doctor. It's almost like,
yes.
if you like, it's almost like the TARDIS is the boss taking the employees to do what they need to do. And that's really a clever concept. And I like it even more because it doesn't seem to have ever occurred to the Doctor. So the Doctor seems to think he's in control.
Right. I mean, wouldn't that be something? I mean, if there was, in future iterations where we learn that, it's really the TARDIS is the one, he's really Charlie and Charlie's Angels, right? He's really the brains of, he's the brains of the TARDIS, is the brains of the operations, but the Doctor just never kind of put two and two together. It's like, wait, I've been doing this for thousands of years, and you're telling me that I'm not the chief here?
Yeah, well, I mean, the TARDIS is telepathic. He can make sure he never thinks that.
That's right, right, Jen. What about you? Do you
I liked the word that Chris used, symbiosis.
yeah.
I like that. I think the connection. It's almost as if the TARDIS is sort of practically the Doctor's subconscious, because
Ooh,
it's like it knows where he
that's
needs to
interesting.
go. And
You know what? I don't know that I thought about it quite like that's interesting. I never had that specific thought before. Wow, the TARDIS as the Doctor's subconscious. Interesting. Oh,
I think that the episode the Doctor's
gold star
Wife,
for Jen.
where they brought back, where they gave the Doctor a human personification, sorry, the TARDIS a human personification for a short period of time, and that information was really critical. But I think that's when we really get a sense of exactly how strong the Doctor's connection is to the TARDIS, because being able to physically talk to the TARDIS for a few minutes, you could tell from everything in his past that this was the most important thing to him. And I think that, like I say, I think that when I think the Daleks told the Doctor that, you know, when the TARDIS dies, you can feel that.
Yeah, that's right.
That
Yes.
connection.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I
All
think
right.
you're right, Ben.
So
Well, actually,
Okay.
I'd like to jump in on something
Please.
Jennifer said.
please.
There's a good point for an idea for a plot point. What if one of the companions, say, gets into the Master's TARDIS? Would the Master's TARDIS have a different scheme than the Doctor's TARDIS?
Right.
Would it influence, because we know it can influence people by letting them speak the local languages and things.
Yeah.
Would it influence maybe the companion to become evil like the Master?
Yeah, that's right. Because you're right. So
As a writer, you know, this is the sort of thing that appeals to me.
yeah,
So-
yeah, that's a great point, right? If the TARDIS isn't either a reflection or is the Doctor's, you know, subconscious, and the Master,
Yeah.
who is just, you know, he's just out there to, as they say, to watch the universe burn. What's the TARDIS? Does the TARDIS, you know, embody that? Is it go back and forth? Is there an evil TARDIS? I don't know. All right, so getting into a bit of the social elements for a second, with Captain Jack Harkness, we had a sexually progressive character who was shamelessly attracted to, well, just about everybody. And yet gender became a huge discussion with the introduction of the 13th Doctor. Now, I happen to love Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, even if I didn't think the writing always necessarily rose to meet her talents. But my question is this: have we finally gotten to the point where the Doctor's gender is no longer an issue? Jen, what do you think?
no. People are still gonna just be mad about it if it's not specifically what they want. And gender, for some reason, is one of those hot button issues that a lot of people get very worked up about.
I think I agree, and sadly, I do agree, because I think if they had recast Jodie with another woman, that would have been seen as cement in their position. If they hadn't done another woman, it would appear to everyone else that this, oh, you know, they made a mistake and they put a man back in the role. And I think that people do think that way, and it's terrible. Because Jodie was absolutely fabulous.
I have to say, because for me, she was actually my first Doctor, and maybe that's part of it.
Right.
But I went back, I saw her first season, I got distracted. I went back to Chris all the way through, and I watched her again. And I got to tell you, I thought she was tremendous.
I did too.
The actor can only work with the words that they're given. So just a quick interlude for the folks who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments for me or the panel, put them in the chat box, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, so the last season took an enormous swing to various degrees, reinventing the history of the Doctor and leaving their origin story a little bit in doubt. I thought it was amazingly ambitious, but do you think it worked? Jen, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I have to ponder that for a second. Let someone else go.
Okay. All right, John, what do you think?
I'm not sure. Until it plays out, we really won't know where it's going. I have to admit, I did like The Fugitive Doctor. And I have to admit, I didn't particularly like the idea of the child. So you know, I'm ambiguous about it. I mean, I love the fugitive doctor concept. I mean, really, when she turned out to be a previous doctor, I was like, yes, this is an interesting direction. But then when we got to the child, I was like, not so sure here, because this is rewriting the origins yet again.
Right.
And do we really need that? But until it plays out, we really can't be sure what's going to happen.
Right.
Fair enough. Chris, what about you?
I think I agree with John. I think I loved the idea of that there were other doctors that we didn't know about. There's a famous thing, you know, the famous argument that happens in Doctor Who, and that is in the television, in the Tom Baker serial called The Brain of Morbius. There is a fight sequence between Morbius in his new form and the Doctor, and a lot of pictures are shown of previous doctors and then other faces that people have interpreted as possibly other doctors. I personally interpreted as they were Morbius's regenerations, and this was the game they were playing, because he says, how far back do you go? But we don't know that for sure, and there could have been an intimation there. But the reality is the idea or concept that there are more doctors that they know about is great. The timeless child thing for me, no.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay. So one question I want to pose. For someone who has a difficult time, that self-acknowledged, making lasting connections with new people because of the intense trauma that they went through, the Doctor seems to have no problem at all recruiting new companions. The thing is, and this is why I really want to get into this for a second. The Doctor knows what the companions are getting into, but the companions don't. The Doctor knows without a doubt that their lives will be in constant danger. They'll be possibly psychologically tortured, physically challenged, and they don't have centuries of training to deal with it. So in short, is the Doctor cruel for doing this to these unsuspecting companions, or are you okay with it? I mean, what do you think? Jen?
I think the Doctor's really lonely traveling all over the place and isn't necessarily thinking about the effect that it will have on these people, or maybe is thinking about it as, you know, I'm going to show you some really fabulous stuff that is going to blow your mind. But I don't think that the Doctor ever is like, hey, I'm going to drag these people into a life-threatening adventure. So.
Well, Chris, what do you think? I mean, he may not intend to, but the Doctor knows it's almost definitely going to happen, and he does it anyway.
I think so. I think that Jen's right. I think the Doctor is persistently lonely. And we have seen in this new series, perhaps more so than we did in the past, where the Doctor will say, drop their companion off somewhere and disappear off, and could be on a 200-year mission and come back the next day. I mean, we don't know, because he doesn't age like we expect. I mean, that's the whole point. So I think that there is a lot of that.
So John, what do you think? I mean, even if the Doctor is lonely, does that justify putting unsuspecting people into this crazy peril without saying, hey, look, before you say yes, understand this is what you're getting yourself into? Because the Doctor never does that.
Well, actually, he did one time.
Well,
there was the case of when he recruits Zoe back in the Pat Troughton days. He shows her a previous adventure that he's been on to explain how.
Well, we're kind of going in the
new series. I think what's more to the point is that he knows that he's in these people's lives, and he must have some way, or she even must have some way of judging which of them can take it, because a lot of them want to come with him, and some of them he says no to.
Yeah.
So he's obviously judging. Is this going to be something that will be more dangerous than eye-opening for people? Because he always wants to show people the wonders.
Right, and yet, look what happened with Rose caught in another dimension. You
Yeah.
know, what was and look what happened to Bill. I mean, that was horrible, changed into a Cyberman. I mean, you know, like some pretty horrible things happen, and the Doctor knows these things happen and does it anyway. But okay, that's great. But now it's time for a special segment where we spin the wheel. On the wheel are 7 possible categories, which I created especially for this episode. Wherever it lands, it's what you get. And the categories are History Revisited, The Ood Abides, Exterminate, Exterminate, Regeneration Station, Wanna Come, Doctor Who, and It's Bigger on the Inside. All right, John, you're up first. You ready? All right. What do you got? You're gonna get, all right, Wanna Come? All right, so the Doctor shows up in your life as it is today. You get sucked into a crazy galactic adventure where you help save the Earth. When it's all over, the Doctor invites you to come along for more. You'd have to leave your life behind for a bit, but you'd be off on a journey of a lifetime. Would you go?
Oh, what a choice, right? I mean, it's a question of balancing excitement with responsibility. And the more responsibilities you have, the less excitement you want. So I think at the moment I would probably reluctantly say no, but asked at another time, it will probably change.
All right, fair enough. All right, Jen, you're up next. You ready? All right, and you got Regeneration Station. Okay, so if you could personally regenerate every few years with all your memories intact and feel fully refreshed, but as a new version of you, would you?
Yes.
Well, yes.
That sounds amazing. There would be a lot fewer doctor bills if that were the case.
Depends on the kind of doctor bills, though, right? I guess. All right, fair enough. All right, Chris, here we go. And for Chris, we got It's Bigger on the Inside. Okay, so all right. Much like the confounding physics of the TARDIS, you can choose any physical element anywhere to be bigger on the inside. What do you choose?
Or in my real life?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my house then. Choose to make my house bigger inside.
Not thinking about other people, not thinking about the world, just me. Just give me a bigger house.
I'll take that. It's the
All
same
right.
as
I knew you were gonna. I knew that was gonna happen, but I was wanting to see if someone would say, "Oh, well, I'll make a bigger Earth, so everyone has plenty of room to run around." Ah, fuck.
Oh no.
Not the hell with other people. It's all about me. All right, now we're gonna pick your poison. I've got 4 choices for you: A, B, C, or D. I'm not gonna tell you what's behind each one, but I will say they're all Doctor Who themed. So, which one do you pick? All right, Jen, you're up first. A, B, C, or D? Jen?
Sorry, my spacebar didn't work. D.
D. All right. So we got convention retention. So now that we're fully back to doing live events with all cultural changes and disruptions we've gone over through the last few years are in full swing. Some do a great job. Others could use a little help. Channeling a little Doctor Who. If you could make one suggestion to con runners and fandom who attends about how we can have a more pleasant, respectful, and fun experience for all, what would it be?
Oh, that's something I would have wanted to prepare. No, I really think that the biggest thing is let people be who they are. Like, don't, not being mean, but if someone likes things differently than you do, or likes a different version of a show, or came into the show a different way, you gotta respect that. Just let everybody be who they are.
All right, fair enough. Okay. Chris, you're up next. So you got A, B, or C?
Hey, for Abbott.
A. All right. So writer's room. If you were invited into the writer's room for the current or future seasons of Doctor Who, what advice would you hope the showrunner would follow, or what request do you have of them?
Oh, goodness. I think no advice, because I'm not in a position to really give them any, but a request, certainly. And I think I would say, please don't forget the show's history. but there is too much of it to just bypass it, you know. And I think that actually, to be fair, the new showrunners, certainly in the last episode, paid homage very well to that.
All right, fair enough. All right. So, John, you've got B or C.
C.
All right, we're going to give you some truth serum. I'm going to ask you 10 Doctor Who questions. You ready?
Okay.
Okay, now remember, we're talking about just from seasons from Eccleston on. Okay, favorite Doctor,
Jodie.
favorite companion,
A little harder. Probably Donna.
all right, fair enough. Favorite Doctor Who episode or story arc?
That one's very easy. Rob Shearman's Dalek. I just absolutely adored that.
All right, scariest Doctor Who villain.
Scariest villain. Probably the Weeping Angels in that case. I mean, I may not like them, but they are blooming scary.
All right. Doctor Who character who you wish had gotten or would still like to see get a more complex storyline.
Oh, I don't know. They're all pretty complex. No, I'm afraid I can't think of anyone there. You got me. They were all very complicated. So,
all right, no answers. All right, you can only pick one for your personal use: TARDIS or sonic screwdriver.
TARDIS, definitely.
Okay, bow ties or suspenders.
Oh, I can't tie bow ties, so I guess suspenders.
Okay, you've been chosen for one of two life-changing assignments, but you have to pick, and you can only pick one: companion or Torchwood.
Well, I'll be honest here. I've not actually seen Torchwood, so probably I'd have to go with companion.
All right. In your life as it is today, Christmas with the Doctor, yay or nay?
Yeah, it'll be kind of fun. I think I'm a big Christmas person, so yeah.
All right. Favorite Doctor Who moment?
Actually, I honestly, I am Demons of Kashmir, is it? I just loved that episode where she says to the Doctor, "I want to visit my Gram." And I mean, to me, that was, yes, that's exactly what a companion would want to do. Go and visit someone from their own lives and see them as they were, not as they are.
Yeah.
So that to me was a wonderful moment. I really loved it.
All right. So we don't have a lot of time. I want to take a couple of quick questions from the audience. I want to see if we have anything here I want to put in. What do we got here? All right. Question for anyone. If you were the Doctor and you could pick any companion from any series, who would you pick and why? Chris, what do you think?
Oh, any companion from any series? Oh, good grief! Like,
Remember, this is from Eccleston on.
Yes. Bill Potts. I would have with any Doctor. I think would any of the Doctors.
I have to tell you, I loved Bill. I thought she was absolutely fan. And my one regret is that she had a short run.
But she and Capaldi together with Capaldi changed for that season were amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was really kind of terrific myself. Let's see if do we have any other here. All right. So one last question I wanted to ask we didn't get to before. So the sonic screwdriver, it's really kind of a magic wand at this point. Do you like the fact that it's sort of it's like a high tech, gadget that's sort of like, an all-in-one thing, or do you think they rely a little bit too heavily on the fact that it can kind of do everything? Jen, what do you think?
I think it's important to have some sort of technology that will function in almost any place that they visit. So,
guys,
I don't think it's overpowered.
Yes, no, maybe. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a good tool, and I think that it's synonymous with the Doctor now. I mean, we went through a period of time after Tom Baker where the pteroleptals blew it up, and that was the end of it because they were believing that he was relying on it too much. But for Tom Baker, it was a prop for acting with, and for John Pertwee, it was a tool. So each Doctor, it's very, very different.
All right, fair enough. All right, so that was great. We only have a few minutes left. So I'm going to share my screen, and you guys going to see some what else we have on the agenda for everyone. Okay. All right. So Chris, what am I looking at here? Tell folks what this is and what's happening.
This is the 15th Watson Chronicles Sherlock Holmes novella that I've written. It's called The Lone Rider. It is a story set in 1886 New York and New Jersey. And Sherlock Holmes has to find a missing roller coaster rider who went onto the ride and didn't come off at the other end.
Oh, very cool. So is it out now or is it coming out?
It is pre-order at the moment. It will be out at the end of this month.
All right, fantastic. And I will say, I'm going to give a big plug as I did at the beginning. Folks, if you're watching, if you like Sherlock Holmes, do yourself an absolute favor. This is a treat for all of you. Buy Chris's Sherlock Holmes books. They are fantastic. He is one of, if not the best Sherlock Holmes writer working today. Buy them. They're fantastic. Buy them now. They're great. All right. All right. Jen, what am I looking at here?
So this is the 4 question marks of the apocalypse. It is a forthcoming, I think, this winter anthology, and my story is called HHH 666, and it is about the 4 PTA moms of the apocalypse.
Which is great. Folks, I actually have a story in this one as well. Mine are the 4 rock drummers of the apocalypse. And so we're all looking forward to it. I think it'll be out in a couple of months, and looking for Jen's story as well, for sure. All right, John, what do we got?
Well, in my ongoing stories of Lethbridge Stewart, it's the latest one. It came from the Isle of Man. Actually, it wasn't going to be called that at first, but the title got to, my original title was taken by someone else. So they said, "What do you want to call it?" And I said, "Well, you know, it came from outer space. Let's have it came from the Isle of Man, just for the sheer heck of it." And they went with it. It's a fun story, I hope.
What's the gist of it?
I'm sorry? Oh, the gist. I got fed up of alien invasion, so I thought, what would happen if something worse came to the Earth than an alien invasion? Aliens with really, really good intentions, but don't understand what problems they will cause. So it's not an alien invasion. An alien invasion would be nice and easy to deal with. It's an invasion, if you like, of people who really only want to do nice things.
All right, the Doctor's got himself a new adventure. Is this out now or is it coming out?
Yeah, it came out about a month ago.
All right, great. Where can folks get it? All the usual places?
Yep, it's all over Amazon, I hope.
All right, very good. All right, folks. As for me, I'm really excited to share with you the launch of my new book. Just came out last week, Blunt Force Rising. This is the 4th novel in my ongoing series featuring hard-boiled Private Eye Angela Hardwick. In my mind, Hardwick is part Doctor Who, part Blade Runner, and part Sarah Connor. In Blunt Force Rising, Hardwick and her protege, Eric Whistler, are providing extra security on a Galaxy cruise ship for an AI, robotics, and cybernetics conference. But that event quickly devolves into a bitter argument between the pro-Android and anti-Android community because they had recently been granted rights. And for me, androids in this book are a surrogate for any marginalized group who seem to engender all sorts of hate from people who can't seem to rationally articulate where the hate comes from or why it consumes them so much. Anyway, a murder takes place on board the cruise ship, shedding off this crazy chain of events, which is even more horrific than Hardwick and Whistler have ever seen. And I can say it's safe to say that when all is said and done, that Whistler and Hardwick will never be the same. This one is also a locked room mystery thriller. So if you're up for some close quarters mayhem with some real philosophical discussions about who has rights and who doesn't and why, then this one's for you. Blunt Force Rising is on sale now in ebook and paperback, so make sure you pick yours up today. And in the meantime, I'll encourage you to check out the first 3 books in the series, Crackle and Fire, Fractured Lives, Hot Ash. And I want to be clear that each novel in the series is a standalone adventure. And I reintroduce the world building and the characters so you can jump in at any point and read them in any order. But there is character development throughout, so your mileage may vary on where you want to begin. Blunt Force Rising and the rest of the series is on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. All right, folks, that's our show. I want to thank my guests for tonight. I want to thank John and Jen and Chris for jumping in the TARDIS and talking Doctor Who. And I want to thank everyone who's watching at home tonight. I'm your host, Russ Colchamiro. As always, be kind, be gentle, and generous of spirit. And I'll see you all next week. Take care, everyone. Thanks. That's our show. Bye now.